Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Open Book Broadcasts, where we talk about anything and everything writing and publishing, and we're an open book about it. I'm Allie, your host, the hostess with the mostest from the Right Place, Right Time, my virtual boutique of professional writing and ghostwriting services for badass and brilliant people who are ready to brave the path to the page. And today, my guest is Lisa Danforth. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Allie. I can't wait to jump right in.
So we have to officially welcome Lisa with her full bio because it's super fantastic and she's brilliant. Lisa Danforth is a business growth strategist and leadership coach. Her mission is to help people build a business that will sustain the life they want to live, not consume it. Lisa is a 30-year, 5-time entrepreneur. She's a certified The One Thing Facilitator, certified co-active coach, and graduate of Tara Mohr's Playing Big Facilitators course. Her clients have dubbed Lisa the hand-holding ass kicker because she matches just the right amount of push with a dose of love. And I have to say, I love that phrase.
I get that a lot. I really do. And that's what people are like, that's exactly what I need, right? Someone to hold me accountable, but in a very safe space.
Oh my gosh. And it's so true. So everyone, I love Lisa. I've known Lisa a number of years now, and we connected originally on LinkedIn through mutual friends. This is why I love this platform, LinkedIn. And Lisa knew that I was just getting on my entrepreneurial journey. She invited me to one of her fabulous complimentary clarity calls. I think it might have been 20 or 30 minutes. But it was so impactful, that 20 to 30-minute conversation. Lisa really pushed on me, which goes back to this whole hand-holding ass kicker that she is, to really have me dig into my why. And every time I had an answer, she was like, nope, that's not it. What's your why? Like, let's dig. And she left me with so many questions, so many things to think about for weeks. But they were all the right questions. They were so important to that early stage for me when I was just beginning as an entrepreneur. So if you all don't know Lisa, you need to know her. So pay attention to what she has to share in our conversation today. So Lisa, before we dive into all the businessy things and writing a book and all that jazz, just tell us a little bit about you, the woman behind the curtain at the end of the day when you get to like shut your laptop off and not be an entrepreneur.
Oh, let's see. I'm 57 years old. I live in Vermont. I have two fabulous boys, young men. They're 22 and 24 who live on the East Coast. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur at the age of 8, believe it or not, knew the school that I wanted to go to and went to the school for business. I have to say my life is pretty darn simple. Like I've known really what I've wanted to do and I follow my passion. I've had 5 different businesses. So I built something to the point where I've gotten everything that I wanted to out of it. And then I am someone who actually is able to pivot. When I jumped into coaching, I was 50 years old and I had many people saying, you can't do that. Or my God, you're 50. Why are you doing that? So I'm a big believer in following our heart, following our intuition and trusting our gut as to what's right and questioning, but with a point of, is this serving me and is it not? And jumping in, just really embracing life. This is the one big, beautiful life. It's not a center play.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is why I love Lisa, because who doesn't want a mentor or somebody to look up to who's just like taking names on a routine basis, kicking ass and taking names on a routine basis. 50 and she pivots 5 different businesses. I mean, this is like incredible stuff. So tell us about this iteration of business. So you're now in a coaching model for the last 7 years. So what was the impetus? Like, what was the thing where it was like, and now I'm going to be a coach?
That's an excellent question. It came from my youngest child, who I adore, but was a major pain in the ass when he was younger. He just, he tested absolutely everything. He was really hard. And I knew that I had to change who I was as a parent in order for him to change and for us to get along and for me to parent him the way that I wanted to parent him and that he needed to be parented. And I found Adlerian psychology. I found Vicky Hoeffel, who wrote a book called Duct Tape Parenting, which is phenomenal if you have children and you're struggling with parenting. And I just leaned into everything Adlerian. And then I discovered that there was an Adlerian coaching program. And Adlerian is Alfred Adler, who was colleagues with Jung and Freud. So he's from quite a long time ago. And his story is absolutely fascinating. Check him out. I won't go into it deeply. But it is all about, we all want to belong. We want to be seen. We want to be loved. All of that. And when we can feel that way, everything just happens, is better. So once I really learned about Adlerian psychology and understood that they had a coaching program, I was like, that just drew me forward. Like, and I jumped right into it. Unfortunately, about 2/3 of the way through, I wound up separating from my husband and had to decide, okay, I could finish my certification, jump in full time, or I could build my catering business, which I had already established. I chose that and then circled back around, gosh, probably 5 or 6 years later. And when things just keep popping up out of the blue, I kept seeing all of these coaching programs and coaching this and coaching that. So something was drawing me back in. I trusted the universe, trusted my intuition, and researched, found Coaches Training Institute, and I've never looked back.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So everyone, Lisa's hit on this a couple of times now. So if you're like a note taker or something, intuition has come up twice. Okay. But it also sounds like timing, knowing when the time is right for you. And it sounds like in your journey, Lisa, that, there was the right time to explore a particular type of parenting style, but it wasn't the right time to explore coaching as the next option. But it just wasn't the right time. Like it came back around when it was the right time. And did you find that when it came back around, you were getting all of the signs that like things just kind of domino effect? Like it was easy or
crazy.
Felt like easy?
It was crazy easy. I found the Coaches Training Institute and researched them, set up a call. Their next program that was starting, which was a 6-month deep dive program, as a caterer, every weekend is taken, right? So they would meet in Boston for an entire weekend once a month. Every single weekend but one, I was available. The kids were with their dad, and I had every single weekend available for my coaching, for my catering. So I was like, okay, there's a little too much synchronicity here. So I was like, okay, and it just felt like home. Everything fell into place. It was wild.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. I love that. I love that idea of feeling like so good about something that you feel like you're at home. So Lisa, I know that in following you on LinkedIn and obviously our wine chats, which I always adore, that, a couple of things that have come up a lot in your LinkedIn messaging or what you're doing in your business have to do around the power of the pause and boundaries. And for folks who are like, I thought they were going to talk about writing and publishing. We're getting there. Hold on.
Get another cup of coffee.
So tell us a little bit about what the power of the pause means. And does boundaries fit in with that, or is it separate? And then we're going to migrate into like, how can people use these understandings of these two things to help with writing their book?
So the power of a pause really helps us with boundaries. And what the pause is it can literally be a few seconds. I mean, how many times has any of us here listening on the call, whatever, said yes to something, walked away and thought, I can't believe they asked me to do that. Right. So it's that resentment piece because we're saying yes to something that we don't necessarily want to do. How do we live and lead an intentional life? How do we live, authentic relationships with ourselves as well as with others if we're not clear on what we want and who we want to be in those relationships? And everything comes back to relationships. So as for the power of the pause, how do we know what we need to focus on today to achieve our goals if we haven't paused to look at what are our long-term goals? So all of our short-term actions or inaction is in relation to that longer term goal. We need to pause. Now that pause could simply be, you, Allie, asking me, hey, can you be on my podcast tomorrow? And me going, oh yeah, I'd love to. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I simply don't have the time. Or I could pause and say, I would love to, but tomorrow is not working for me. So it literally could be just a few seconds. We can get really uncomfortable with that quiet, right? When we're sitting there like waiting. But it actually sort of puts a punctuation on what it is that you're having to say. So you can pause and really think, what I'd really like to be able to say is this. Instead of responding and reacting, we're very intentional in what we're adding to our calendar. Now, our time is a non-renewable resource. So when we're pausing, it allows us to make sure that we are investing that resource and not just spending our resource. Boundaries are a part of that. How do we create the life that we want, the relationships that we want to experience, the self-care, the spiritual practice, the health practice, whatever it is, without boundaries? All success requires boundaries, and boundaries are essential. So the problem being, so many people think of, like, when I ask you, what comes to mind? What's that feeling, Allie, when you think about setting a boundary with someone you know that you've needed to set it with for a long time? Is it like joyful, like, oh, I cannot wait to jump in? Or
No, no, it makes my stomach turn. It's ick. It's ick
right.
because to me, it's like negative confrontation, even though I know that it doesn't have to be negative confrontation, but it feels like, like you just want to like
Hard,
seize
right?
up and grit your teeth. Yeah.
Hard, divisive. It can feel mean for many of us, especially women. But if you are writing a book, you're going to need to set boundaries.
Mm.
The thing but it can feel really hard. So we'll say yes to someone, even if it's our kids, in the moment when we are working on our one thing, when we are writing, when we're focusing on whatever it is that we want to focus on, our priority in the moment, what's most important to us. It is so easy to sort of like put it aside when our kids come up just for no reason, or someone asks you to do something. When we can establish that boundary, it provides space for us to focus on what's most important, what and who are most important to us. I would ask you this, Ellie. What would you think of if I said studies are showing that the people who are the most compassionate are also the most boundaried?
Interesting.
Right? We think it's mean, we think it's divisive, we think it's hard, we want to be liked, the person is going to like us, we're going to
Mm.
upset them. But by setting those boundaries, it allows us to be in authentic relationships. Because we're saying yes to what we want in the moment and no to what we don't.
Mhm.
So when we establish those boundaries, it actually builds and sustains relationships because we're showing up authentically. We're not feeling resentful towards the other person or avoiding them because we know that they're going to ask something from us. So as Brene Brown says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And I could talk forever about boundaries, but please be thinking, if when you're struggling with setting a boundary, when you are sitting down to write, when you're trying to figure out what is the time, I need to let everyone know to not bother me. I'm working on my one thing for the next 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is. Remember, clear is kind and unclear is unkind. Those relationships are only going to deepen when you are clear, direct, and respectful and share your boundary. That's your responsibility. It is not your responsibility how it lands for the other person.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that right there, right? I mean, how many times do we take ownership over somebody else's feelings or responses, and we do it
Right.
proactively. Like we do it before even anything's
Mhm.
happened. We make assumptions about how the other person's going to react
Right.
and talk
We
ourselves out of doing it.
we choose an action or an inaction by what we think the other person might possibly be thinking. And I want you to really connect to that, anyone who is listening. We make so many choices in our life because of what we think someone else might possibly be thinking of us. They're not thinking about us, they're thinking about themselves. Everyone's thinking about themselves, right? Choose you. Why would you want to be in a relationship if you have to be someone other than you are?
Right. Yeah.
And if you do, then that is an entirely different. If you're married, that's an entirely different conversation. I know, and I could get into it. I can give you tools and whatnot of communication tips to state. But the one thing that I would say is I know that I've always agreed to X or I've always done X, but what I'm finding is I'm feeling resentful. And I love you enough to have this difficult conversation because I don't want to feel resentful. I'd like to have a conversation how we can make this work for the both of us. Because I need to finish this book. I need to do this and I want to. So how
Mhm.
can we make this work for the two of us?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a good little script right there, everybody. So be writing that down. When you said the thing about like we're always acting or enacting based on what we think the other person is going to, it's like what a rabbit hole, first of all. But it makes me think of how many times I work with clients and they're on the beginning leg of the writing journey, and they're just terrified
Mhm.
that there's going to be nobody that they're going to reach with their message. Nobody's going to care what they have to say. And I remember being there. I remember being there at one point myself. And so we go through these things. And some of it I think is imposter syndrome. And some of it is like we're right on the edge of a cliff doing something that we've never done before, and it's terrifying. But you know, what I now tell them, because I've come to the other side, I now realize how much mental garbage it is like, but what if that's not all true? What if there is more than one person who wants to read your book? What if they love what you have to say? What if, like, we don't have a crystal ball and we assume these negative these negative things from other people that we're going to get, trolled online, or people are going to leave negative reviews, people are going to return their book because they don't. And it's like, yeah, but what if none of that happened? What if instead, but also what if it did? Like,
right? I mean, thank
like
you. Like, what if it did? The thing is the more you get out there, the more you're going to have that. So it's actually something to celebrate, that you are creating dialogue. You are not, none of us are appealing to the entire world.
right.
So many of us, we don't need a super large audience. I mean, if you're writing a book, if you had 50,000 people buy your book, I don't know what a great number would be, Ellie. You can throw that out there, but I mean, would you be happy with that?
Right.
That means that other people are not interested. Not everyone is interested in my style of coaching, and that's okay. That means that I actually get to speak specifically to the people that I want to serve.
Yeah. Well, and it's no different really with a book. I always tell people, you're not talking to the masses, because if you're talking to the masses, you're not really talking to anyone. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is like when you're talking to the masses and you're imagining the faceless crowd of people that you're trying to reach, you're going to water down your own message because you're not talking to anybody specifically.
Right.
So I like to think of the writing process as being like, you need to find a person, just one person to have in your mind's eye, so that as you're writing, you can write for them. And now I guarantee that there's more than just one, but you only need to think about one. You need to think about connecting to that individual person. And if you can get comfortable with that one individual person needing exactly what it is that you have to offer, then you will feel successful at the end of the day, because you have chosen very carefully who you're trying to reach, and you've done it successfully. And in reaching them, you'll create your own ripple effect. Like, but rather than think about, the huge thousands and thousands of people, right? Like, what if it was just a small crowd? What if it was half a dozen? Like, would that be enough? Like, I think some of what we do, and I think in all industries, but definitely certainly in publishing, is it's like, oh, well, my book or my story, my message is only worth something if I reach a ton of people. Like this idea of where we've put the cultural marker of success or achievement, versus like, okay, well, let's just forget all of that for a second. Do we need to reach, this list of things or this number of people in order for what you just did to be considered a worthy enough endeavor? Like,
the problem with that is when we're looking exterior for what success is, when we give that away in a society that really connects our self-worth to our net worth, we will be continually chasing after it because it's exterior. We have inherent value because we are here on this earth, because we're humans. And when you continually look outside of you for that, you will be continually bobbing back and forth between joy and disappointment, because there's not that anchor to bring you in. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy. I am saying it's simple. And this is where we can get tripped up. We can really start second guessing ourselves. And that's hard. So if you can have that one anchor, and when you get that win, when someone is like, Allie, that was the best writing, it really triggered something inside of me that is helping me change something I've been trying to change for the last 3 years. Remember to anchor that learning. We can always pull up in a heartbeat viscerally in our body when we think about sometime, when we've screwed up, fallen down, made an idiot of ourselves. Like, you can feel it within your body. You can pull it up like that viscerally. We need to anchor our wins, as doesn't matter how big or small, so that you can pull those up as well when you're stepping into this new and grander space. We so easily check things off, like, oh, I read that article and I got some likes. Well, great. You haven't had likes on your first 5, but you got 10 likes on this. Celebrate that. You're getting better. You're improving. Your visibility is showing. Anchor that so that when you step into a new, bigger, grander space, project, relationship,
Yeah.
you've got that in your back pocket.
Yeah. It's so true. And it's the small things. It's always the small things in life, right?
Right.
And I feel like it's no different with our wins. I remember when I was, first in business, I was writing Dear Universe, and I was trying to build up like an online presence. And I remember that every time I gained a new Instagram follower, I was freaking thrilled because it was one more than I had yesterday.
Right.
And I remember when I got to like 100, I was like, zeros. Yes. But I've noticed that as I've gotten further into the entrepreneurial journey, as we get comfortable, I think this is what it comes down to, is we get comfortable, we forget some of the things from when something was new. And so a couple of years ago, it was like, I got to 100 Instagram followers and I felt like a badass, right? And now I'm a few years into entrepreneurship, and man, my default setting has shifted and gone back to what it would have been originally, and I have to remind myself to be like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Like, okay, so your open rate on your email wasn't that great this week in comparison, but man, your click rate was like twice as high. It's all perspective, right? If you're taking the time to actually have perspective, because it's really easy to just like fly through and not look at anything and be able to say this is a win or this is not. But it's interesting how it's like we can celebrate, but then we can get into this comfortable position, and we get
Complacent.
used to something. Yeah, complacent. And then we just like we lean back instead of lean in.
Right. Success can actually create complacency. We get to that level and we don't have that hunger and that drive that allowed us and supported us to advance where we wanted to go. And I am by no means saying that we always have to be hungry, but we do. I mean, the intrinsic motivation, one of the things is continually evolving, right?
Yeah.
Learning and putting ourselves out there. So we need that intrinsic motivation. We as humans want to continually evolve in some way, shape, or form. And success can really create that complacency. I've fallen prey to that as well. Oh, you get to that, it's pretty comfortable, but I'm not doing all of those things consistently that got me to that point. Then I go back to the, not the beginning, but halfway back, and realize that, oh, I actually need the consistency is key. Success is created through the consistent practice of the simple fundamentals, period.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
not a big bang.
So that is also something that, I don't say it so eloquently because I just am too brash for all of that. But Lisa said it beautifully. And one of the things that I talk to clients about is like, writing practice doesn't have to be necessarily about it being these long blocks of time every single day of the week. It's about establishing something that's consistent and moves you forward. And so every time you sit down and you do a little bit, you feel like you're moving, you're getting momentum, you're feeling successful. So you do it again, right? And you build off of it, and your confidence builds and you continue. But it's about the consistency. It's not about quantity. It's not about it having to be every day. It's not about it having to be 90 minutes. What would you suggest for, because this is one of the things that happens a lot is people, number one, are looking for unrealistic blocks of time in their very busy schedules, or they're deprioritizing the writing. It's automatically the thing that gets bumped down because this, that, or the other thing is more important. So using kind of the power of the pause, boundaries, goal setting, what would you coach these people to be doing?
Habits. I mean, I am a total habits junkie. We are what we repeatedly do. And I love what F.M. Alexander says. His quote is, people don't determine their futures. They determine their habits, and their habits determine their futures. So create the habit of writing. Now, here's the trick. Go small, like small. So small that it almost feels like you're cheating. So what I would say is set a timer for 60 seconds. If you are new to writing and you really want to build a habit, you don't have time and you're trying to fit it in, I like to say set a timer, like create the space for 15 minutes, but set a timer so that you will commit to it. I can always do 60 seconds. If I can't do 60 seconds, there's a bigger issue going on here, right? So commit to that 60 seconds. And if at the end of 60 seconds, You want to move on, you've got to get to something else, great. But if you've created the space for 15 minutes, but you've committed, stay as long as you want. Stay for that 15 minutes. Build the muscle. When we jump in and think, I'm going to start a 2-hour a day writing practice, I'm going to finish this book, you are setting yourself up for failure. So create the habit. The problem being that we don't have identity-based goals, identity-based habits. As an author, in this moment, I'm going to choose writing. There is a term that behavioral economists call time and consistency. We value the present more than we value the future. So the reward is in the moment. You get to check something off your endless to-do list. You get to have coffee with your child, which is a wonderful thing. But if you're looking to put a book out there, maybe you can spend time with your child at a different time. Have the conversation with that child. Have the conversation with your spouse. Have the conversation, because not everything matters equally. We need to figure out what we want and how we go about getting it. If you are most creative in the morning, then you need to carve out time in the morning if you want to be a writer. If you want to have a book to write, start small. Start with a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever is easy, that feels easy enough for you that it's almost cheating. Create the habit. So time and consistency, we value the present more than we value the future. Smoking is a really great example of this. We value the present in the moment. We get to relax. I'm not a smoker by any means, but it's so easy because it's so obvious. Yeah. You get the cigarette, you calm, the breathing, it allows you to rest. You're choosing the time to actually sit and smoke. You could choose and meditate, but you're choosing the reward in the moment of the cigarette. The cost is in the future. We know what the cost of smoking is. The cost is, we need to start flipping things. So the cost is in the moment, the difficult conversation with your child of, honey, I can do something with you in 15 minutes or whatever it may be. I use a child because that's often something that we, especially as women, don't want to put on the back burner, but we still have to set our boundaries. It's not that specific time. It's time with you, and have that conversation. But the cost is in the moment of sitting down and writing, even when you don't want to. The cost is in the moment when you put on those shoes to go out for a walk because you know that your wellness, your health needs to be improved. The reward is in the future, so it's not necessarily guaranteed. Look at what one habit, if you were to implement it, would make the largest amount of difference in your writing practice and making you a writer and making you a better writer because you are being consistent in your actions. What is the conversation that you need to have with the people around you so that you have a common language of, I'm focusing on my one thing today. I'm focusing on my priority for the next 15 minutes, 30 minutes. When you see a red ribbon on mom's doorknob, you may not come in. Blood and broken bones, sure. Other than that, you can hang out while I'm working on my one thing. You all deserve this. You deserve to focus on what you want to be focusing on. So have that common language so people understand that this is important to you. Because if you have always shown up and given all of your time to everyone else, you've agreed to dance that dance. You've agreed to be that person. Give the gift of transparency. And I'll get off my high horse in just a second, Allie. Give the gift of transparency to the people around you. If you've always been the person to X, have that conversation. I know I've always been the one to do this, but writing this book is so important to me. And I know that you want me to be happy. So let's figure out a way that I can have 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is, whatever that time frame is, and have that conversation. But that is on you. Your boundaries, these conversations are about you. They are not about other people. Do not set a boundary and expect everyone else around you to honor that boundary. That's on you. Mm-hmm. That is on you. Easy, simple, but not easy. Right. Show yourself some graceful accountability. Don't beat yourself up. Don't let yourself off the hook.
Oh my gosh, graceful accountability. I love that. Right? Because it really is like, if we're going to communicate the boundary, it's not like that's the end of it. It's
people
not
really
like
it when
what the boundary is and then that's it, especially with kids, right? Kids are constantly pushing on the boundary.
And they know exactly what they need to do to what's pitch, what's snit, whatever it might be, to get you to just cave because it's just that much easier. Yeah. Have the conversation. Here's what's going to happen with everyone, child, adult, whatnot. Because people like it, They prefer it when you didn't have the boundaries and when you did everything for them and when you put your priorities, your goals in your book on the back burner because it served them, even though they know it's important to you. It's just the way that it's been. It's the lens through which we see and experience life. You get to change that lens and you get to have those conversations.
Oh my gosh. Everyone, you need to watch this one episode over and over and over again and just take copious notes. I mean, we covered intuition, we covered passion, we covered the power of the pause, we covered boundaries and communication and clarity being kindness, simple but not easy. I mean, so many beautiful, wonderful freaking nuggets. And this is why Lisa Danforth is brilliant and one of my favorite people. So Lisa, where should people connect with fabulous, brilliant you?
Thank you. Thank you. LinkedIn is my favorite social media platform. It's just at Lisa Danforth. Got it when it was really early on. Or you can also check out my website, which is lisadanforth.com. If you would like to set up a conversation, there is a complimentary clarity call, a 30-minute clarity call. Feel free to book a call. Would love to chat with you and see how I can serve you. That's not a big sales pitch. It's just how can I serve you? But also on my website, you can scroll to the bottom of the first page. There'll eventually be a pop-up. I'm hoping my tech person's having that soon. You can download the Boundaries Blueprint, which is a 6-piece framework on establishing boundaries.
Oh my gosh. Now, if I know anything about how powerful the 20-minute conversation with Lisa is, then this freaking blueprint is out of this world. And I know that a majority of the people who hang out in my circle have issues with boundaries. We all do, but I mean, I definitely know that the people that I'm hanging out with and serving in the world of writing and publishing are struggling with the boundary piece when it comes to their writing, and sometimes not with other people, but sometimes with themselves. Like there's not anybody else to be beholden to, but just their own, like, how do they manage their time, boundaries around their own time, not people, right? So there's all kinds of things that you can learn from Lisa. I'm sure there's so many things that you're going to gain from her blueprint. So please go and check that out. Lisa, thank you so much for being on our open book broadcast today.
Thank you, Allie. I always appreciate being able to talk about my mission and my message. So thank you. And thank you to everyone.
You're so welcome. So folks, between now and the next time, you can visit therightplacerightTime.com to figure out what this wacky one is doing. That would be me. You can also join me again on Tuesday, December 6th at 10:15. We're going to have another guest joining us on Open Book Broadcast. Between now and then, I do have an upcoming workshop called Please Pass the Mashed Potatoes, a gratitude workshop for aspiring memoirists. That is going to be Wednesday, November 30th at noon. There's still room for you to register and grab your seat at the table, but and I hope that you will consider joining me. So thanks everyone, and we will see you next time.
Hi. Thank you.